people often make the analogy between the government and a household, and in some senses that is appropriate, but really the better analogy is between the government and a firm. All firms, practically all firms, have debt, and we're not concerned about the fact that they have debt. Secondly, very few firms ever have the intention of paying that debt off. A firm just figures it's going to just keep rolling its debt over time. So in that sense, the government's never going to pay off the debt. We are never going to go to a zero debt. Even if we balance the budget, which means we don't run a deficit in a given year, we're still going to have $14 trillion worth of debt out there. So it's more like a firm. We know they're in debt, we know they're always going to have debt, yet we still worry about what the level of debt is. So I can look at two different firms, and one firm has debt where servicing that debt eats up all of its revenue in a given year. They're in trouble. Another firm has debt, but servicing that debt in a year takes up 5% of their revenue, 6%, then they're not in trouble. And so I think that's the concern that we have with the U.S. and the Treasury. It's not so much that we have a debt or that we're always going to have a debt, but what is the size of the debt relative to our income? And that's why people keep talking about this debt to GDP ratio. 2 points on this. We're approaching 100% right now. At the end of World War II, the debt to GDP ratio was 130%. So we have lived with a higher debt to GDP ratio, and we have corrected it over time primarily through economic growth. The concern we have is the interest payments on the debt are made out of tax revenue. Therefore, how much of our tax revenue are we taking up simply to make interest payments on the debt? And as that portion grows, as we eat up more of our tax revenue to make interest payments on the debt, then we have less to spend on the kinds of things the guarantees we've made to Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, defense, all of those other kinds of things. In that sense, it's like a household. If I build up a huge credit card debt and I'm paying the interest on that debt, paying the interest on that debt may mean that I have to reduce my standard of living now because I've lived too high in the past. I think that's the concern that we have about the government today.